So welcome to RICO 12. My name is Lisa S. and I have the disease of alcoholism. We begin with a moment's silence, followed by the we version of the set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside anything we think we know about ourselves, about our disease, about the big book, the 12 steps, the program, the fellowship, the people in the fellowship, and all spiritual terms, especially you, God, so that we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us to see the truth. We surrender this next hour to you. Your will, not ours, be done. And so I'm so blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast that is in the Afro-Euro time zones. I hope that you will now join us and draw strength and hope from these podcasts that we host Fridays at 12 p.m. UK time. We've recently changed the time, so it's now 12 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. European and South African time, and 7 a.m. Eastern American time. So RICO 12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships, addictions and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. And I hope you'll reach out if you think your experience, strength and hope will benefit this special community. Today's speaker is the lovely Andy H. He will speak around 30 minutes and then after his share we can do some Q&A. If you do have any questions, there is the RICO 12 online website. Please get in touch. The RICO 12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and has more and more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. We have all the recorded shares and a couple other super exciting projects, one of which is the Big Book Roundtable discussion, where we have David G, Nikki M, and Justin B, who go through the first 164 pages of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, line by line. Great resource that is. But business, Tradition 7, RICO 12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our Step 12 in this manner. We gratefully accept one-time contributions through PayPal, Venmo, and Wise, which we put in the chat throughout the program. We also offer a monthly subscription program called RICO 12 Spearheads. To join in and help support these cool projects, please consider donating at www.rico12.com/support. So we look forward each meeting to growing deeper in effectiveness and understanding as we learn from and with our special speakers. And today we're very blessed to learn and grow with Andy, who is going to talk around a new world came into view. Really excited, Andy. Over to you, my love.
Wow, thank you, Lisa. And hi, everybody. My name is Andy. I'm blessed to be an alcoholic. Blessed to be in this space with you all today. It's an honor and a privilege, but ultimately a responsibility to give back to Alcoholics Anonymous. A saved my life. No two ways about it. And I can never give back to what's been given to me, but I could sure try one day at a time. And in this moment, what we're sharing right now is unique. I was taught to me to honor this moment and first welcome anybody that's new, not so new, maybe having a tough time, maybe feeling they have nothing left, maybe exhausted on the inside, maybe comatose on the inside like I was when I got to you. I didn't get to you as a hot mess. I got to you as an icicle. And it wasn't because I had a few bad weekends. It was because really I had a few bad decades. And the newcomer, anybody that's struggling, doesn't matter how much time you have. We could be stuck in our struggles, or maybe you're having a good day. I'm always reminded by what our book says, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 124, that our darkest past is our greatest asset. With it, you can avert death and misery for countless others. There's a reference in that great series, Game of Thrones, that I think speaks to us, at least speaks to me. And it says, everything you did brought you to where you are today, where you belong, home. We got you. You're with us now. And welcome to the greatest love story of the 20th and now the 21st century. And this is a program of love and service. Oscar Wilde said to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And if you were like me, perhaps there was no love in your heart for yourself or others, maybe masquerading, thinking that you knew what love was. And when I came into my home group in 2005, it's a group that's been around for a long time. It's called the Morning After Group. Bagels, love, fellowship every Saturday. We've been on Zoom for 6 years. But before that, we were in a bricks and mortar situation in this big church in Westwood, New Jersey. And, when I crawled in there in the summer of 2005, I was welcomed. The morning after, right? There's a song about it. And if I start, speaking in song lyrics or some literature, it's because I was wasted for so long. I missed so much. And now it seems all these songs I might have heard throughout my life, they reverberate within me, right? And I feel like I need to pass it on because there's messages in them, right? So the name of our group is the Morning After Group, and there's a song, right? Can't you see the morning after? It's waiting right outside the storm. Why don't we cross the bridge together and find a place that's safe and warm? Yeah, that's what it was. Arms were outstretched. Coffee was being spilled. A large church basement where over 100 people were, and everybody is either laughing, crying, maybe sitting in a corner. A lot of hugs going on. I could feel the roar of the laughter, and it was not something I necessarily wanted, right? Because, see, Bob Dylan wrote this. He said, I was burned out from exhaustion, buried in the hail, poisoned in the bushes and blown out on the trail, hunted like a crocodile, ravaged in the corn. Come in, she said, we'll give you shelter from the storm. That's shelter from the storm. I was so alone, and I wanted nothing of it. But back to love again, what was told to me is that we're going to love you until you can love yourself. And then to take that to the next level is we're going to love you so you can learn to love others. And that's what this program has brought me, a capacity for love, a capacity to feel my own heart, right? A capacity to understand that pain is part of the process. If you ask me what I'm most grateful for, well, I'm going to probably tell you that it's the pain that brought me to you so you could bring me to God. William Blake wrote this beautiful quote some years back. It was, I sought my soul, but my soul I could not see. I sought my God, and my God eluded me, but I found my brother. After seeking, I sought my brother, and I found all three. And that's what's happened in here. So when I talk about love today, right, let's be clear. This is the cozy armrest for weary souls, right? Weary souls in a place where we get ignited. And the love that is clear here, I want to mention is this love, and I will say that I love you all, is this love of connection. Hopefully you sense me and you, and I know I sense you and me. And with that, we're brought together on this common journey to trudge and to save others, right? Given the capacity as the result of these steps to go out into the world and instead of being in the line of fire, but be on the firing line. That's what you taught me. So I meant to say something different when I came in here, and it's funny how God just moves you around, right? This process of being like, shaken and turned, and you make a left and a right, and then suddenly, you realize that it's not you. And So I want to make that even, a little more focused and a little more intense. And what you taught me was to use a prayer, right? A prayer to ask God to appropriate my own voice. Thomas Merton gave us this great prayer some years back. And for those that maybe don't know Thomas Merton, he was an incredible spiritual teacher. He wrote a lot. He contemplated prayer, gave us that. And he said a lot of things that make sense for us in what we do here. He said something that, sounded very familiar to me. He said, we care for ourselves in the service of others, which sounds very similar to we stay sober to help another alcoholic. He said a lot of things. He said, any idea about God isn't. He said that God's first language is silence. He also gave us this prayer, a prayer of surrender, a prayer of unknowing. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always. Though I may seem to be lost in the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you're ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen. So I want to thank Lisa, everybody at Rico 12, Justin, Nikki, and others. It's been amazing to watch this platform develop and to reach out and care for so many. So thank you for having me back again. There is a couple of things, some strict spiritual laws that were taught to me. They weren't exactly things that I wanted to hear, but they've proven to be absolutely true and really life-saving for me. One of them was simply this: once you come into AA, you're never, ever going to drink again in peace. And I've seen that. There's another one that says that in AA, plagiarism is wisdom, only stupidity is original, which means that if you hear something that sounds familiar, that's good. The point is to convey through a channel that I've tried to open with this prayer, are the glimmers, are the wisdom that gets spread in these rooms, right? So hopefully something sounds familiar. And, finally, and this was told to me by my sponsor, Jerry, my first sponsor. Jerry was the kind of sponsor that would rather step on my toes and my feelings than step on my grave, because he knew I was expiring on my feet, when I showed up in the summer of 2005. And what Jerry said was, AA without the 12 steps is like pouring maple syrup on a pile of crap and expecting it to taste like French toast. Now, that sounds maybe a little harsh, but it's nowhere as harsh as this disease is, right? This disease, a chronic disease that will talk to us in our own voice, a chronic disease that, well, will maybe talk through other people that love us, right? What my experience is that the folks that may love us the most, our family that aren't like us, understand us the least. And I'll talk about that experience. That's where the cathedral experiences come in. A new world comes into view. And the fact of the matter is, if you're like me, you've got a 3-part disease. You've got a physical allergy to alcohol, which means when you take a drink, the drink takes you, and you don't stop until you run out, pass out, or get locked up. That triggers this so-called phenomena we call craving, right? An allergy, an abnormal reaction, So I have a body that can't process alcohol. But if that's not enough, I have a mind that can't process reality. See, I have an obsession that's so strong, right? When my body does not have alcohol in it, that my mind is locked and cannot see and cannot tell the truth from the false. This obsession means that when alcohol is in my body, my mind takes me back to a drink no matter what. It might have been I was feeling good, feeling bad, or feeling nothing at all. But the point is that this force, this overwhelming power that I've seen is greater than a mother's love for her children, and was certainly greater than my love for my wife and kids when I walked out the door some years ago. Yeah, that's how powerful this obsession is. But there's another obsession. So we get saddled with not one obsession, but a second. And that second obsession is found on page 30 in our big book. Page 30, perhaps, a page that in and of itself is the relapse page. It's a page where step zero is contained. We talk about step zero. It's been found and discussed in places like in Los Angeles, where you go round and round and round thinking that you have more than two options. It's that uncomfortable period from your last drink to when you're ready to accept spiritual help. So what is that obsession, right? This is the step before the steps. Don't take my word for it. It's said, right? So we have another fatal obsession, and this obsession is I can go back to the days when I thought I could control and enjoy my drinking. It's an obsession that turns into an illusion, and then I'm deluded. I can't tell the truth from the false. I'm living in fantasy. The fantasy that I could go back when, I could drink, one night on a weekend, come home, after a long night on a Friday and not drink the rest of the weekend. There was a time when some ice cold beer and maybe a little of another substance, and I was good for quite a while. So I'm going back to the glory days, the days when I was, let's say, on, the dance floor and the New York City club scene. I'm a big club guy in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. But it's not a really good look when you're at age 42, you're standing at the edge of a dance floor on a Thursday night drunk, your wife and kids are at home, you've got a good job, etc. And you look around and you realize that you were on this dance floor at age 20, right? This one club in New York City, it's been called the Ritz, it's been called Webster Hall. It's still around, by the way. But you're standing there looking around and saying, is this all there is? I went back to the bar.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah. So this obsession, it's, also on page 30, we don't always talk about it, but this disease, cunning, baffling, and powerful, is just the tip of the iceberg when we describe it as that. We talk about insidiousness, awaiting a chance to entrap, the whisper and the scream of the obsession to go back out. Now, I'm not going to tell you to think to drink through. I'm not going to tell you to put the plug in the jug. I'm not going to tell you to don't drink no matter what. And I'm certainly not going to tell you to play those tapes. I've heard that. See, for me, that's an accessory. I don't want to be an accessory to murder because those things are not in my big book and they're not my experience. What is in the big book and is my experience is that I have strange mental blank spots, which means that I cannot think anything through, right? At certain times, I cannot tell the truth from the false, and certainly cannot, with any clarity, look at myself and what I've done and be authentic about it. So for me, it came down to this, right? And it came down to this today, right? So I want to bring it into today. It's first important that I mention a sobriety date. My sobriety date's October 21st, 2005. That's when the power of God came between me and the thought of the first drink. It was a day that I had nothing to do with. Little did I know that on that day I would be separated. It was a Friday, actually. It was a Friday in which I consumed 2 warm shots of Jägermeister as my wife, Susan, walked out the door. Just to fast forward, we're still married. We've learned more about ourselves and in our relationship, over the last number of years. So I'm married 41 years. I have 2 adult children, 2 grandchildren now. All these blessings as the result of these steps. Good sponsorship, the men and women I've been blessed to sponsor, and all of you, that I'm still here and still, learning on how to have really honest, open, loving, gentle relationships. But on that date, on October 21st, I had been thrown out of a rehab, and I came into that rehab completely frozen, lost, with my head down, bleeding from the inside, and no one knew, right? The brokenness that I had. See, my story, as other people have wrote, is filled with broken pieces, terrible choices, and ugly truths. It's also filled with a major comeback, peace in my soul, and a grace that saved me. My story is closer to this: abandoned in childhood, no one knew my abuse. I turned it on myself, and no one knew either. See, I drank enough alcohol. Little did I know, as an alcoholic committing suicide, one drink isn't time. I drank enough alcohol, put enough harm out into the world, almost destroyed myself in the process. And I came into you, I was frozen, So this day when I was separated, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that now that I could see, and this is really a new world came into view. And, I'm going to try to turn into some of these moments that really talk about, what I am, I think, trying to say today about a new world coming into view. I see today that the whisper of desperation grew to a scream, and it was greater than the obsession to drink. That's what happened on that date. And when we talk about this new world coming into view, it's a line on page 12. So we're in Bill's story now, and we're in the recovery portion of his story, right? And he says at the bottom of page 12, a new world came into view. The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me. So using this cathedral experience, right, this metaphor, right? So for Bill Wilson, he went to Winchester Cathedral in the UK, around when World War I was just beginning, and he didn't understand what it meant, why he was there. But eventually he started to understand that he needed and wanted God. And that's come to me as the essence of the roots of my disease, of our disease, the unmanageability that sits on the other side of the dash, right? I'm powerless over alcohol, and this dash, this pause, and my life is unmanageable. Now, the unmanageability gets reflected on the outside. For some people, it wasn't for me, but it was certainly on the inside where, as Bruce Springsteen said, living life a cappella, he said, it's a sad man is living in his own skin and can't stand the company. Rod Stewart wrote this some years back. He said, I spent some time feeling inferior, standing in front of my mirror, comb my hair 1,000 ways, but I came out looking just the same, right? Living life like an ingrown hair. That was me. Separated just from the beginning, coming into this world, separate, apart, and different. Mark Twain said, the worst loneliness is not to be comfortable with yourself. And in our 12 and 12 steps and 12 tradition, it talks about the pangs of anxious apartness, this unease that sits and just gets larger and larger and doesn't stop. That was me. And eventually the new world came into view. I saw myself in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I saw that what alcohol did was treat my alcoholism until it didn't. It was an artificial way to a spiritual experience, which kept me alive, kept me from blowing my brains out for a long time. I went from age 15 to age 48. I'm 69 now. Between those years when I had that first drink, the bedevilments on page 52, the long form of the spiritual malady, right? To be bedeviled is to be tortured by loneliness, fear, inability to be of real use to other people. That's the long form. The short form is found in the doctor's opinion: restless, irritable, and discontented. I'm restless. I can't sit still. I'm irritable. I'm easily annoyed. I'm discontented. Wherever I am is not the place to be. You know, it's like looking in the mirror, but you're stuck in a frame the whole time. And suddenly, when I had that first drink, you know, that was a cathedral experience. Right? I didn't understand, though, that that was going to set me on a path, a long path of initially feeling part of, right? I went from the frame into the mirror. And at age 15, when I had that first drink, you know, I was electrified and I was part of life at last. So I go all those years, you know, getting worse and worse, getting kicked to death by a bunch of rabbits, as we say it, you know, little by slowly. And then finally I come to you in that summer of 2005, you know, lost and frozen. And I have this rehab experience, and in this rehab, but you folks came in. See the significance for me of the cathedral experience, which I didn't realize at the time because my head was down. I couldn't give you clean urine, and they threw me out of there. Was that you folks came in? You were doing your 12 steps. So my recovery didn't start with step 0 on page 30 or step 1, which thank God is over 60 pages, because see, there's a wall of denial and delusion that needs to be extinguished, that needs to be incinerated, if you're like me. Bill Wilson in the first 100 knew that. I thought, as I was going through the book with my sponsor, Jerry, at the time, that things were getting like a little repetitive. But see, I was still negotiating. I needed every word, just like I needed every drink to consume, to get to you. I needed every word in the book to continue to pulverize and incinerate this wall. So my recovery, though, back to the rehab, it started in the 12th step in your hearts, because you came in. You know, you brought a meeting into that facility. There was love there, though I didn't feel it, and I got a glimmer of hope as I ended up crawling into my home group a few weeks later. So the cathedral, though, back to the cathedral and back to today, you know, I mean, I've been writing down these cathedral experiences in which I did not know where the hand of God was at the time. And isn't that true when you look at the beautiful analogy that people talk about of the lamplighters, you know, the folks that lit the lamps in the 1800s over in the UK? You know, I picture this cobblestone street, and, you know, you've got these guys that at dusk would go ahead and light the lamps. And it's been said you never knew where they were at any one particular time, right? You couldn't tell, but you always knew where they had been. And seeing God as we do, you know, at least for me, typically in the rearview mirror, you know, I had no idea that in this rehab I would find myself coming back to it, you know, to bring experience, strength, and hope in. But there's a story that goes before that. You know, I was driving to work. I used to drive to work about 40 miles, and on this big highway known as the New Jersey Turnpike, there's an elevated section. And on this beautiful day, I look to the right and I see this church steeple, and I just start crying, you know. By the way, you know, not only did Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, teach me how to tell the truth, ruin my lying, it also taught me how to cry. So if I talk about the big book and I cry a lot, I'm just a fundamental orthodox member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can't apologize for it. Why would I? Crying now, right? Actually, crying is a way to show gratitude, right? It's you combined with God bringing out things that need to be brought out and need to be released, right? See, it's as if, you know, we show our gratitude through the buckets of tears that get shed in these rooms, and the crying continues. Yeah. So I'm on this New Jersey Turnpike, and I see this church steeple, and that steeple is massive, right? And like a real alcoholic, I'm obsessed. And I got to go find the church. Forget about work that day. I got to find the church. So I end up finding it, and it's called Queen of Peace. Queen of Peace is a church in North Arlington, New Jersey. And I go in the chapel, and I'm crying some more. And I don't understand at the time what that means. At that point, it was not where I was sitting there saying, "Okay, God, what do you have for me today?" I say that today now. All right, God, I wake up in the morning, start with the 3rd and 7th step prayers as my eyes are opening, and I say, God, just use me. But I wasn't at that point yet. In any event, some time goes by, and I get invited to go back to the rehab that they threw me out of. And I share a bit, and a guy comes up to me after, and he says to me, Andy, his name was Greg, and he said, I like what you had to say. Do you have any availability to sponsor it? I said, sure, Greg. And I said, Greg, tell me about yourself. He goes, well, I'm from North Arlington, and Queen of Peace was a church I went to. Do you know Queen of Peace? It's got that huge church steeple. You may see it from all miles around. And I go, yeah, Greg, I know that church. And he says to me, yeah, I went there as a kid, and I have family members buried in the backyard there. And I go, yeah, look at God. Look at God. When I got sober, I was working for a company that had me drunk for many years, but then had me sober. And in this company, the town that the company is in, the town is known for two things: a medium to maximum state prison, and also known for the company I work for. And I get sober, and I got sober, and some years go by, and the company goes through all these reorganizations. People are laid off, right? Like a lot of corporate America at the time. And I survived the layoffs. Now I'm sober now, and I start wondering why I'm still here, right? You start, in sobriety, you start being more contemplative and wonder why you're still here. And time goes by, and then suddenly somebody announces at a meeting, a local meeting, oh, we need volunteers to go into this prison. Now, this prison I knew as a kid because the prison was featured in TV in the New York area in a series called Scared Straight. You could probably look it up and find it. And what it was inmates in the prison shouting at young kids that had committed minor crimes and trying to scare them from doing anything worse. And I was, scared enough just from that. And all those years go by, and suddenly, with the little time going by, I find myself behind the walls in this prison. On Thursday nights, every other Thursday night for about 8 years, I'm in this prison. Now I was nervous. The guys we went in with, we made sure we ate first. There was a pizza place across the street because you never know, right? I mean, I'm a guest, but stuff happens in prisons. And I find myself, though, going in, bringing our big books and sitting around in this big church, in this chapel in the prison with guys that had committed some horrible crimes. 99.9 of them had done them, when they were drunk and high. Didn't matter. They were there. Some of them were there for their whole lives. Some of them were there for a short stay, but we're sitting around with the big book. And a number of them were sober a long time, and they led the meeting, and we just participated. And see, these are the people that are often forgotten. And it was my first introduction into hospitals and institution, H&I, to realize that, God's going to guide me. God's going to tune me and take me to places I never thought I'd go. And it ended up that I was blessed to see some of these men come out, stay sober, and lead crime-free lives. So back to, the cathedral experience, what I didn't see at the time was, why was I kept in this job, in the same town, for so long? And what I saw today is how God's hand worked. God's hand work was to keep me sober, was to get me sober, keep me sober, and allow me to go behind those walls and help somebody else. And in doing so, boy, did they help me, right? So this is the beauty of it, right? That we can't always see at the moment God's hand, but we can as time goes on. And I'll end with this. I was taught to make amends in several different ways. And one of them was to make a gravesides amend, right? See, there's virtually, it's virtually impossible to not find some way to make amends, whether the person is still around, or is transitioned, right? So I make a graveside amends, and I don't have no time to talk about it. It was to my father. He died on a subway train, many years ago, and we had lost touch, but I made amends. It was a graveside amends. Couldn't find the actual grave until, some angel, showed me where it was in a massive cemetery. And I filed that away, and then I ended up going to local meetings again in New Jersey. And wouldn't you know it, on a snowy January day, I found myself at a graveside with this man. His name was Rich, in which he made amends to his grandmother and to his brother in the same cemetery. So there you go, right? I didn't know that. I didn't know that, what you taught me would have a direct effect on other people's lives, despite any misgivings I had, because, see, God is the author of all truth. God expresses him or herself in willingness, and when I'm willing, I'm changed, and that began the journey in step 2, where today the most important relationship in my life is my relationship with God. Why? Well, it begins with this. See, I have an alcoholic mind, and I need the power of God between me and the thought of the first drink so I can live in a recovered state. Everything now is about protecting my sobriety, allowing God to continue to enter and direct my life. Little did I know. So I'll end with this. I promise, got to talk about The Wizard of Oz, right? Who knew? It was my favorite movie growing up. And now it has incredible meaning. Dorothy, standing at the end. Glenda, Good Witch of the East. Toto the dog. They're all standing there at the end. And Glenda looks at Dorothy and said, Dorothy, what have you learned? And Dorothy said, there's no place like home. And Glenda says, well, you've always had the power. You just needed to click your heels. It's always been within you. The great reality deep within all of us. See, God doesn't have any grandchildren. We get to have a direct experience. God gets expressed through you to us, but also we have access to this power. You showed me how to click my heels, and by allowing me to click my heels, you pointed me to where God's always been. And these 12 steps, you can stay sick in Alcoholics Anonymous and have plenty of company, or you can get well in AA and have plenty of company. And the difference is the 12 steps, the formula for sobriety, the formula for God, and the formula for the good life. Or as somebody said, the instruction manual for the enfoldment of our souls. So if you're new, not so new, having a tough time, welcome home. Stay with us. Stay with us. So that's it. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop. Sometimes I get enchanted with the sound of my own voice, and I'd rather you say thanks for sharing and thanks for stopping. Lisa, appreciate you. Thanks for all your service. And I love you all, and that's enough out of me.
Hey Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Andy. We love you. That was so beautiful. And when you said at the beginning, this is the greatest love story, and do you know what? In ever, it's and oh, it just makes me go all goosebumply, and it isn't about, yeah, it's exactly that. I also smart because you keep relating to the cathedral at Winchester. I live not far from there, and how many times I've walked, back before I found AA, obviously, it walked past, walked in there, walked past that gravestone is like you say, is mad, isn't it? But I really appreciate you coming, Andy, and there's so much. I'll come in, but I'll give, if any of you guys want to come in and ask Andy any questions, just pop on in, raise your hand, or if you want to be anonymous, you can pop it in the chat. Please go ahead, guys. If not, I'm going to ask Andy some questions. I've got a few things I've written down there. You say you don't stop, Andy. I'll be here all day.
Hello.
When, I love your passion when you said about the whole. Okay, yeah, all right, Vince, 2 secs, and let me just finish here, darling, and then I'll have you in. The whole speak so passionately about the relationship with God, Andy. When you first come in, did you struggle with the whole God idea? Did you have prejudices from your past, or what did that look like for you?
Thanks, Lisa. I did not. I was one of those that did not come in with any real preconceived notions. I didn't grow up with, let's say, a punishing, vengeful God. I came in just pretty much neutral. And when I was completely, just destroyed, inside, that turned out to be an asset for me, it seems, because, the step 0 that I often talk about, where the concession has to happen to your innermost self that you're one of us, was especially vicious, right? It says this is the first step in recovery. So once step 0 happened for me, and, here's the cathedral experience. For me, it was, as some folks know, in a parking lot here in New Jersey, where a wise gentleman said to me, "The party's over." And I was 6 months in and had not really had a first step experience. So I'm still, going round and round negotiating, right? And he said, "The party's over," and suddenly everything changed, right? I was convicted of the truth in that moment. Time collapsed, and I just hung up with this guy, and he, it was the most profound thing that ever was said to me. And I had this sense that, now that I've been found out, right, I'm going to be all right. And that moment was transformational. So when I got into step 1, it was so clear. And then when you offered a spiritual solution, I said, sure, why not? But the only trouble, and I'll end with this, that I saw was I didn't have what I thought was a connection within me. And my sponsor, Jerry, said, "Do you believe that I believe?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you can just borrow my higher power, right? My higher power's got a sense of humor. He or she has been guiding me now for a long time. Just borrow it, right?" And that got me on my way. So
lovely, thank you, Andy. Come in, Vince.
Yes, yeah. Hi everyone. Hi Andy. Good to see you again. Fantastic. My name is Vince, a sober alcoholic. Very, very excited to be here. As soon as I saw Andy's name on the flyer, I said, "Man, oh man, I need to get there." And here I am, and I was the third one in. I think I was when I came in, when I logged in. So yay! Yeah. I used to be the last one in the drinking pubs and everything, but these days I'm the first one at the AA meeting right now. So there you go. There's a difference in there. Andy, thanks a lot for your share, and obviously thanks a lot, Lisa, and the team in the background. the biggest thing that I've actually picked from your share, as I've always said before, and I've always felt the first time I heard Andy, he was definitely a conduit or the instrument of God, of sharing this message, or of the higher power. And you can feel sort of it's oozing that life. And you see that somebody feels your pain, you see that somebody's loves you, and it's the same kind of love I feel with all of us feel of the love that Alcoholics Anonymous has for me. And I've fallen in love with you guys, and I'm fallen in love with the program, is because of people like Andy, who you see through. And it's another level of like, oh, what was that about? When he speaks about the cathedral experience, bloody hell, man. Honestly, I'm telling you this, I've had so many of those ones, and I've never had it called cathedral experience, but I know exactly what he's talking about. It's that moment when you're somewhere and you're thinking, did I get that or did I not? Or what's happening? I even before he explains what it is, I've got a feeling that maybe if I ask him, what is that? That's probably those moments when, you feel you're in the right place, but you miss the message and you don't know what's happening. But thanks a lot for sharing everything. I'm so excited about what you're sharing. And I came in, and yes, you said something about AA without the big book is something without whatever. But my paraphrasing of that was AA equals 12 steps, full stop. There's no AA without 12 steps. That's what I understood. So there's no AA without this. So I'm one of those people who came in, and on page 58, I'm going to stop here in a minute, let other people share. On page 58, on how it works, it says, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. When they read this to me, when I came in, just today, I've just started my 6th month in recovery. This is what, stuck with me. We beg of you to be fearless. And I said, fearless? Bloody hell, you don't know what has happened in my life. If I could go through those things, I certainly can handle this big book. And I started eating it and disturbing everybody else around me. What is a sponsor? What do I do? And, when my first sponsor actually disappeared after the first 3 steps, and the day I was listening to Andy, that's the day I was looking for another sponsor, and I was praying, and I was stuck in step 3. And that same day, I made 2 phone calls and got 2 people who are ready to help me. And one guy helped me through step 4 all the way to step 11, and even showed me how to sponsor people. Like, this is what you do, Vince. And he said, I don't have to be married to you or be your sponsor forever. I said, hallelujah. I just wanted the steps and you get out of my way. Literally. So I loved this guy. I know that even anytime I can't call him, but we went through. He's still my friend up to now. I call him my technical sponsor consultant. Now I got and he told me, get somebody in your home group face to face that you can talk to, to be your sponsor. I said, well, I called somebody the other day, they didn't pick up the call. And then when I was telling him that, the other guy called. Okay? Now he's the one who's now sponsoring. And every single time I call him, he tells me, Vince, how are you feeling? And I'm like, shit, he's here, he goes again. And the other one tells me, how is your thinking, Vince? And I'm like, these guys, they've cornered me. And then Andy comes here with his whole spiritual stuff and everything else. Now, I don't think I've got any more excuse but to stay sober for the next few hours. Thank you, Andy, and God bless. And thank you so much, guys. Cheers.
Oh, thank you, Vince. Yeah, definitely fearless and thorough every day. Dave, come in.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for hosting and anybody else in service. I'm Dave. I'm a recovered alcoholic and an addict of many things. Good to be here. I jumped on a little bit late, but yeah, don't miss an opportunity. Thank you, Vince, for your share as well. Really enjoyed that. Andy, love you, brother. Really good to see you. I'll try not to miss any opportunities to listen to Andy H. I don't really have a question. Well, I suppose I do have a little bit of a question. I've been blessed to have you on my journey since the beginning of this round of steps. My sobriety date's the 23rd of September 23. And I've kind of known you since the November of that year. And you've always been a constant person. I know that if I reach out to you, you're going to come back to me with something out of the big book and your experience around it, which has been invaluable, because I had a mental health breakdown recently, and you were one of the ones in my God crew that was there for me, and I'll never forget you for that. I'll be grateful for the rest of my life for that. My question is, sorry, I've got my Kleenex here if I need him. If you're working with a man and they get to a certain point in the step work and then they balk at, say, step 4, or they balk at 8 and 9, how do you continue to be there for them without being too sort of pushy, which would technically push people away? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Love you too. Can't wait to see you soon. Be heading over there. So blessed to come back to the UK, and see, the book is very clear about it. In working with others, it's a big chapter, right? And in fact, if you took pages 1 to 88 in the book, that's essentially the first 11 steps. If you took from working with others to a vision for you, that's 76 steps. 76 pages. It's really thick, right? So you can see that the whole point of, let's say, 1 through 9 is to catapult us into the world of the spirit to help others. And in particularly working with others, there is probably about 40 different sets of instructions that help us to stay away from being codependent on others, including sponsees or sponsors, right? Which means that in the end, and it gets repeated over and over again, carry the message, but don't carry the drunk. Over and over again. As heartbreaking as it may be, the relationship, though, if, let's say, a sponsee for me is balked on in step 4, and I just came to mind one guy that he did columns 1 through 3, but he couldn't do column 4. This was years ago. And our relationship changed. It went from, let's say, sponsor to sponsee to just friend. And I've, had to do that a number of times where I would just say, look, I'm here to help you meet the conditions to enter the world of the spirit. That's my job. Why? So that God can heal his broken world through you. And if that stops for whatever reason, who am I to say that, that isn't what God has intended for you? And it's not my job to be, it's not my job to work harder than a sponsee does, right? And as much as, you feel like if I say it just this certain way, they're going to get it, right? When it gets to that point now, I know that the book is very clear about moving on and simply saying, well, right now, we're friends, but we're not in a sponsor-sponsee relationship right now. And that can change back. And that's what I've had to do, as tough as it is, because, trying to browbeat somebody, trying to insist, trying to be like a dictator, that just doesn't work. The book doesn't talk about that either, by the way. So, and yeah.
Thanks.
That's it. Yeah.
That was a great question, Dave. I think we all resonate with that. Thank you, Andy, for that answer. Yeah, and you were saying, Andy, that with the guiding the sponsees, the whole purpose is to get that connection with the God of our understanding. What does your step 11, your prayer and meditation look like? What's your what does that go like for you?
Yes. So today, and it's changed. It's meant to, I think not be stagnant, because see, God's word is never stale, which means that I've got to adjust as time goes. One thing that was impressed upon me, and it's been my experience, is that when the big book talks about meditation, they don't necessarily talk about the Eastern practices, right? Whatever Christian practices, Hindu, Buddhism, of trying to get your mind quiet. It actually talks about a contemplative meditation, which means that I'm contemplating my thought life, right? There is actually quiet thinking that could go on during that time. So that's something that I do really throughout the day. But it begins in the morning. It begins as my eyes open. I used to wait, let my feet hit the floor, get some coffee, etc. But now, and it's been this way for a while, is as my eyes are starting to open, I'm into the 3rd and 7th step prayer. I'm into saying the Thomas Merton prayer. And essentially, it was given to me this, saying that, should I put it? To get me out of the way immediately is the idea, right? If my first thought in the day is about you and not me, I'm off, on the right footing. So I will essentially ask right from the jump, when as my eyes are opening, God, please get me out of the way. What would you have me do? What would you have me be? Whatever needs to be done, whether it be laughter, pain, joy, sadness, just show me the way. And so that begins. And then, I get up and I have some readings. I have some quiet time, but the quiet time doesn't mean my mind is quiet. It's contemplative. And, as we were shown, self-examination, prayer, and meditation, that triumvirate, is the beautiful way to begin the day and go through the day. So I follow the directions. The directions in the 11 steps say, we ask God's help first before we set our feet into whatever direction we think he would have us be. So there's got to be a little bit of first, looking for an inspiration. And some days are better than others, right? This isn't meant to be, any progress, any type of perfect thing. But right now, for me, that's the way I begin. That's it.
Yeah, I love that, Andy. Yeah, it was pointed out to me, them pages 86 to 88, it tells me what I have to do. And like you say, there's keeping it simple and just following the clear-cut instructions, isn't it? All throughout the book. I have a lady here who has asked a question. Please, can you share more about healthy sponsorship?
Yeah. Thanks for asking the question. It's healthy sponsorship. And this is true of all relationships now, right? Is boundaries. What was given to me was, and this is true really in any relationship, same, whether it be with my wife, Susan, whether it be the kids, whether it be friends, right? This is the healthy boundary. The healthy boundary is the distance between where I can love you and love myself. The distance between where I can love you and love myself. How does that fall in, right? And asking God to help set that boundary. The instructions again in working with others, it's as if just like the first 60 or so pages repeat themselves over and over again when it comes to, step one, we get hammered again about the experience that the first 100 had with sponsoring others. So, and we have also this, not the use of the word sponsor, we have the use protege. We have prospect, we have friend, and you can't not find a place where it isn't said over and over again. And I'll just pull one out. This is on page 96. To spend too much time in any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects, is the word prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. It's said over and over again, the same thing. Mm. The biggest issue I've had and we had is that our ego gets tied into it, right? And what I was told early on was I never got anybody sober and I never got anybody drunk. I said, that's a hard thing to say. Because no. Your job is to shine the light, right? Maybe it's very, very, very intense. Maybe it's very soft, but the idea is to shine the light. And that keeps things healthy. That means that it doesn't venture into having somebody that wants, let's say, money from you, which has happened, or, wants to, just continue to have a relationship with you that's a little bit, crossing lines, let's say. And it can be heartbreaking. But I would say, long story short, in the first, so few pages and throughout the chapter working with others, you're going to find the guidance over and over again for healthy sponsorship and healthy relationships, overall, because that's what it is, right? I mean, if you're sponsoring somebody and you're going through the fourth step, you're going to hell with this person and back. Mm-hmm. So
thank you, Andy. I'm mindful of time there. So if we didn't get to any questions you wanted to ask, please consider joining our WhatsApp group, the great community where you can pop questions in there and see what's going on with the RICO 12. If you'd like to be a future speaker on RICO 12 Afro-Euro, please send an email to rico12pod@gmail.com. And if you've not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please go do so now. It's a great way to work step 12 in sharing this message with others. I invite you all guys back next week with another great speaker. And one last bit of service for you, Andy, if you'd lead us out on a prayer of your choice. Thank you so much, Andy.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much, Lisa. And thank you to everybody at RICO 12 for having me and everybody that's here today. Love you all. And if we can have a few moments silence for those that are still sick and suffering and their families. Why don't we close with our 11th step prayer, the St. Francis prayer. God, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there is shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. God, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than be comforted, to understand than be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen.
So there is one who has all power, that one is God. May you find God now. Stick and stay, guys. And when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it, you are worth it.